call.
Supervisor O'Neill.
Here.
Supervisor Jones. Here. Supervisor Roman.
Here.
Supervisor Matera.
Here.
Supervisor Shesto.
Here.
And Rick Munzer.
All right, has the meeting been properly noticed?
Yes.
Any public comment? Has there been any correspondence or communications?
No.
Okay. I'm looking for approval of minutes for the August meeting. Motion made by Barb, seconded by Kurt. All in favor, say aye. All right, we're gonna open the public hearing. One, there's a request by Hartman Sand and Gravel Inc. as owner to petition the Natural Resources Committee for a zoning classification change from shoreland wetland district to shoreland. So section 7 Rocky County Shoreland and Floodplain Zoning Ordinance. Recognize the results of the wetland delineation by Rupert Melke dated July 27th, 2022. Affecting the following described real estate: County of Fredonia, T N2N-R21E in the west 1/2 of southeast 1/4 section 8 and the northwest 1/4 northeast 1/4 section 17. Tax key number 04-017-01-00.00 and 04-008-10-001.00 and 04-08-09-000.00. Property address: North 6621 Pioneer Drive, Fredonia, Wisconsin 53021.
Okay.
Is there somebody here that wants to explain this really quick? Okay.
Do you guys have maps or?
Yeah, we do.
Okay. So I'm Eric with Graphy with Hartman Sand and Gravel. So basically, if you have the map in front of you, or I can have some extra copies to it.
Do we have? No, we have.
It's just a little small. A little smaller? Yeah.
No, we're good. We're good. I get glasses.
So basically, yeah, this is back when Sewer Pack probably did the mapping, they basically chased our boundary lines where the wetlands were. And so what we basically did, we hired Rupert to come in and actually identify with an assured delineator that would be the eastern boundary. So we're going to gain probably 12 acres of sand, and that's actually a bedding sand material for farmers. What's underneath that, it's basically the hill came down, that's the end of it. And so now this is already submitted to the DNR. So apparently the DNR now is going to, at some point, it'll be updated on the wetland maps, but I don't know how long that takes to actually get those done. But it has been forwarded to them and approved through those channels. We have an existing NR 135 restoration plan. This won't affect that at all. Basically, we're still going to have the same sloping. We have a stipulated permit and with the county right now, so we can continue to do under NR 135 our current plan. So, which would be the basic sloping, and probably this portion will go back to probably to a lake, depending on what the source would follow the sand in the floor. And right now we have found sand. You can see our screening plant on the one side, so to the east of it. So it will just chase that vein right up to the boundaries and slope it accordingly. And Barry will make sure we do it according to our plan. So for Tony. So I don't know if there's any other questions on that or.
One question, on our digital overhead view map, it looks like the sand pit extends into what was the former wetland delineation line.
Yeah, yep, it did, and that was on us when we were extracting. We had it staked, and that one actually got by us when we were actually extracting, and we realized we weren't. Then we looked at it like, well, this isn't wetland, which we're just chasing the dry sand. So that's when it kind of got into our minds. We better go after and get this thing redelineated or delineated. So, yeah.
Okay, so obviously that would be a concern moving forward that
Right.
You know, extend
Exactly. Yeah, now we have stakes, and we actually went through and put new stakes along his entire, every time he had a turn, which you can see there's quite a few turns, we have a stake now at every turn, painted orange. flags.
Barry Sullivan, Washington County Land and Water Management Department. I was aware of that issue. That's why I had encouraged Eric to, Hartman saying we have to hire a surveyor to come out there and delineate the wetland, at least where they want to work into. Because we do realize that the wetland inventory mapping, Wisconsin wetland inventory that the DNR produced is not perfect. And the DNR even says that it's based on area, most of it's on area photography interpretation, what point, some ground truthing. So the survey will supersede that mapping information automatically. So the DNR will update its layer, and at some point in time, we will get a hold of that layer and update our county mapping as well at some point in the time. But with the approval of this, it will then become the official map until the new maps are updated.
Thank you, Barry.
Any other comments? All right, we're gonna move on to number 2 then. Request by Joe Curtis as owner to petition the Natural Resources Committee for a zoning classification change floodplain to non-floodplain in the Shoreland District for section 7.1300 of the Ozaukee County Shoreland and Floodplain Zoning Ordinance to reflect the results of a fill project for the construction of a new residence. Affecting the following described real estate: the town of Belgium, T12NR23E in the northeast 1/4 of southwest 1/4, section 18. Tax key number 02-09-09-010.00, lot 5, CSM number 1826, doc 038425, and lot CSM number 1827, doc 038426, property address 6256 Homestead Drive. Comments about that? Is that?
Hello, everybody. I don't know if you can hear me or not. I'm Joe. I'm sorry I'm not with you today. I was on vacation and got COVID, so can't travel. Doing well. But thank you. This is a property, just to give you a quick background on it. It was 2 separate lots. Maybe 5 years ago, I purchased one lot. 3 or 4 years ago, I purchased the adjacent lot. I did combine them into one parcel. So I think that's what you referenced as 6256. The south lot had a floodplain that was a little bit more to the east, and the northern lot had a floodplain line that was further west. I'm in the process of building a home. I plan to tear that house down. I got a permit to add fill to the land to bring it up to a reasonable height, safe height, as well as push the floodplain forward in both lots to be equal with my neighbors. So basically we stripped the topsoil, we moved the floodplain forward, pretty much equal with my neighbors to the north and to the south. So that is where it is at today. The floodplain, all the fill, all the subgrade fill is done. The paperwork is into FEMA for the recognition of the moving of the floodplain. And then we're in front of you guys to, I believe, just stamp that approval to map that on your maps.
Any comments from the board? Any other comments?
This is get Barry Sullivan's office of County Land and Water Management. This again, this is a typical floodplain development standards, filling portion of the flood drains to flood protection elevation 2 feet above the floodplain. So again, as Mr. Curtis mentioned, so that he's going to be in the process of constructing a brand new home that's the elevated floodplain development standards.
Okay. With that, I'm going to close the public hearing. And since these items are, I'm going to act on, well, let's do land and water real quick. And then with your permission, after that, we'll have the University Extension talk next, because she needs to get out of here. But I think since these guys are waiting on the vote on this, so go to number 6, land and water management department action items. Number 1, ordinance, shoreline and floodplain zoning map amendment, town of Fredonia, sections 8 and 17.
I would move to approve.
Make the motion.
I can start.
Okay.
To approve it.
Sure. Motion by,
It's in my section. It's not in my district, but I talked to the person coming to the
she make the motion, I'll second.
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Barb, second by Tony. Any comments by the board? Not? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion approved. Second, ordinance, shoreline and floodplain zoning map amendment, town of Belgium, section 18. The motion?
I'll make the motion.
Motion by Kurt. Have a second from somebody?
I'll second it.
Second by Barb. Any discussion?
Yeah, I just have a question, I think, more for my education. So, the floodplain has been adjusted to be consistent. But when you say push the floodplain forward, does that shrink the floodplain? Is that?
Yes, basically with the rezoning request, both at us and, also recognizing, yeah, basically what happens, the floodplain line goes around the fill area. So, if the rezoning is not approved, then we have to regulate the floodplain at its current location regardless of the fill. So by moving it, recognizing the fill and shifting the floodplain further to the east on the boundary of the fill, it eliminates the need for Mr. Curry to have flood insurance on his home insurance when he builds a new house now, so.
But there's an effect on the floodplain, right?
It's very manageable. The flood fringe area, basically flood fringe area is what they consider, the NRC consider flood fringe area when they do these modeling. The flood fringe area is considered typically areas that's already been built. I'm not all up on how that modeling all comes out to be, but from what the NRC told us is that basically flood fringe area is basically when we fill in, it's kind of counted for that in the modeling for any future potential filling in that. So really, and for Lake Michigan, it really has no, the effect is very negligible. It's on compared to our riverine system.
Okay, so then now my question is on process. So we're being asked to, not retroactively, but, approve a floodplain realignment after it's already been adjusted. Is that correct? Is that
Correct? Because what this is becomes a map, correcting our mapping. Because our current mapping shows the floodplain in its current location.
Right.
So
But
the ordinance requires to correct that mapping information.
we want the maps to be correct? I get that, but it seems like something's a little backwards here. That the rezoning should have happened as part of a request to do this, as opposed to the fill being applied, affecting the flood zone, negligible though it may be. Now, is that correct? Is there something backwards here? Should we have reviewed this prior to the fill being put in place?
Well, the problem is, well, I guess I don't know how. This is what it's been all done since I started with the county. So this has been going on this way even longer before that. That's how it is. Usually what it is, we approve a permit to fill. Once the fill in place, they get an after-fact elevation survey to demonstrate that they met the floodplain development standards. Then they're able then to go through the rezoning to rezone that to have that fill pad to be recognized as no longer floodplain.
You just asking what you said about the fill permit being pulled prior to the fill being placed.
It's the way it's always been done.
But the fill permit was pulled
Right.
and approved prior to the fill being done.
Correct.
And then the map.
Correct.
Comes after the fill. Supervisor Huss, I just real quickly too, you heard a month or two ago from Andy that along the lakeshore, the floodplain maps are going to be redone. So this adjustment will also be taken into account during those remaps by FEMA.
What I want to know is, when we pass this, which you just made the motion, is everything in compliance with your department that you feel it's all up to where it should be?
Yes, because he provided, as part of the fill requirement for the floodplain round one, the fill had to be compacted to meet FEMA standards. There's a standard for compaction. We got that sign off from Mr. Curtis, engineer, certifying that fill's been compacted to FEMA standards. So this next step is now just to recognize the fill pad, remove it out of the floodplain, so when he builds his new house, he's not restricted by floodplain development standards at that point.
Who approves the permit?
Our office does. It's done administratively, and that's been for about the last 10 years. Before that, most of these requests had to go through the board of adjustment for approval, but it really came down to that most of the time, even the board of adjustment members were asking, why are these requests coming before us when it's pretty much they would approve them anyway. So when we revised our ordinance on 2000, we took it after checking with the DNR. We found out we did not have to have these go through the board adjustment for approval. We can do these administratively.
Well, I'm gonna go for it. I just see,
It seems like there's a process issue I mean, what can we do? Either approve it now as a ex post facto event, or we don't, and either the maps are wrong, or we ask the applicants to remove that bill. And that, I mean, we're just in a situation as a committee where I don't think we have too many options. So anyways, I will be voting for it.
I sat on the board of adjustments way back then when it was the other rate, and then it got changed to what we're doing now. So I feel that's why I asked if we're in compliance with everything. That's my important point. But that did get changed because way back then I wasn't a county supervisor. I think it was right after I retired, and I served on board of adjustments for a number of years, and we went out to sites with Andy and looked at all of this before it ever got to this point in the time. So I'm satisfied. I will look at it.
And just one last comment, which about the new floodplain map. I think part of the process issue here is the difference between Lake Michigan and river floodplains. And specifically with Lake Michigan, our floodplain, which often included wave runoff, was very approximate. And so the bill was often hard to resolve with the FEMA floodplain maps because of the approximate nature of that. That's what's being redone for the new floodplain maps, in which case we'll have a more definitive elevation line for the Lake Michigan floodplain.
So we're in this fuzzy gray area right now.
Probably, and it might mean that, you know, it does get handled slightly different in the future when we have a more definitive Lake Michigan floodplain map. So that was my.
So in any event, I don't think the applicant should be held accountable for that fuzzy gray area.
So I'm gonna call the vote. All in favor? Motion carried. Okay. Again,
Thank you.
It's okay. You're welcome. It's okay. We can move university extension up to the next item. So Denise, so you're up.
I appreciate it. I have a training that I'm supposed to be in. So, but it's very important. We need to have a discussion about the community development educator. If you want to move forward, I know we've, Corp Council came and explained how we need to put that on the agenda. So I'm back this time. So, the focus of this position would be organizational leadership. I gave a little document that talks about the nonprofit work that's been done in the state, just to show the impact that community development educators that have this focus really make on the state. And of course, you know the history in Ozark County to have a community development educator, and you know how it works with nonprofits as well as different businesses and organizations as well. So our department's here too.
I think we were looking at some of the other potential functions, but I think our recommendation is to fill with this position because it would be a full-time position. The other ones would be part-time.
Yeah.
positions. So,
Sorry. Questions?
We'll proceed accordingly.
Okay, good, thank you. And I know that you have a spot for the budget, and do you want me to do that now? Really, what we've done is we came underneath, the levy, about $20,000, and that's because, our Steph Lasser, she was our, regional ag farm management educator. She moved to a state position. So that position funded 100% by the state. She's still housed here in Ozaki County. She just covers a bigger geography than what she did in the past. So we do have a reduction. I did reduce some of the professional development as well as mileage, but not all of it. And that the reason is because we have 2 other ag educators that they may need to use some of that mileage or professional development. Every county has a piece that they may pay for that. $20,000 left.
Good thing.
Any questions?
Anybody else?
Well, I appreciate you letting me go first, so I can go get on that training. Thanks, guys.
So now we'll move on back to discussion item number 7, the 2023 budget recommendation, natural resources. You have any comments about this, Jason, or?
No, this is sort of a preliminary look at the budget. It's actually a little more in flux this year than it normally is because of the wage study is still finalized. Very much a status quo. But I don't know if there's any questions specifically from the committee. Honestly, the process is, we'll finalize my recommendation, the exec committee will review, and then it will be placed before the county board.
So operating is pretty much what it's been in past years. And then, but what about like capital? Is that a different thing, or is that, can we talk about that some other time, or is?
You mean capital projects? Yeah, I think obviously we sort of handle those outside of the budget process now, and I think with the ARPA funds being available, that will change that as well. But we have about $2 million in our capital reserve fund at this point. So generally after budget in December, we'll start that process to review. And I know Andy had submitted some project or some capital requests, I think, for a GPS equipment, and I know Andrew had a few items in terms of.
I can't remember off the top of my head.
Several items. I think there were some smaller items that we may have taken out, like a trailer or something. We'll address those. Yeah. I think in terms of the parks budget specifically, this is one where we've kind of made some more aggressive assumptions on expenses, and with the understanding that there's really no true way to utilize general fund surplus to directly reduce tax levy. So as I think the way that we historically have done it is we just make tighter budget assumptions, and if departments go over budget, then they'll draw down on the general fund reserve. So I think Parks Department specifically was one where we're a little more aggressive on some of the assumptions. The impact there, I think, is now we have full-time caretakers in all of our county parks. It's just safety, security, and really just trying to find recruitment and retention for folks. So we'll have full-time caretaker. We do have full-time caretakers at Wabadonia and Meekwon, and we're active. We're still seeking more for Vermont Park. So.
Can you refresh me on what the golf courses transfer to the general fund?
It is
Well, this year I proposed an increase to
$85,000. So there's we asked the golf courses basically to make a payment in lieu of taxes to the park. So $85,000 of golf course revenue goes directly to offset expenses in the in the Parks Department. And we got was increased $2,500.
For each course. Yeah, we hadn't increased it in a while, and while I didn't do a full, in lieu of tax calculation, thought it was warranted for a slight increase.
In 21, there was a net of $1.5 million, give or take. 22 projected to be.
Hopefully similar. We do, on that net balance, we have several pending capital projects that are being put against it. So I don't think it'll be that large at the end of this year.
We've been waiting for golf carts for
2 years.
2 years. So should they ever arrive, we'll have to pay for them. I just got enough. Yeah, we locked in the price a few years ago. Actually, it's been sort of lucrative because the vendor has provided us other golf carts.
We put in the contract that we needed rentals until delivery, and it was not anticipated to be 2 years, and so we've had those for 2 years with the contract price locked in. So, but anyway, well, we have been saying it for a while. I just got an update this morning. We should get those. They are expecting delivery by the end of the year. Probably not usable for the golf season, but by the end of the year. And so we will have that large. And then the other one is the ongoing construction of the maintenance building. There's a significant contribution to that. The price of golf carts is a little right around 300,000, and we had already anticipated to get a new set as well, or an additional. So we're expecting another request for capital of the golf carts to go. Yeah. So we're thinking of a total budget impact of around 500,000.
So how many carts is that actually?
I'd have to look. I think it was 70. I'd have to look.
70 or 80.
Yeah, I'd have to look. But we got a really decent price, and also the cards that we preferred.
So where the courses are situated now, they've earned enough revenue to pay for that. That itself shouldn't impact the cash.
Process, will we, the Natural Resources Committee, get another view of this at our next meeting after the Executive Committee has weighed?
Certainly, we do not bring it back. I think maybe if there was anything that changed significantly, we would do that, but historically, we don't bring it back to the committee.
Okay. I'll just one last thing on Jason's comment. A lot of times in parks where sometimes we need to budget for the unknown because we can have very large repairs, but it certainly is not something we have every year, to Jason's point. So anyway, we've had to replace or significantly repair the HVACs, for instance, at some of our buildings and things like that. So a lot of times we'll get unexpected equipment. We had quite a bit of repair work this year on our wood chipper, which again is a significant cost. I'm just saying sometimes what we budget is kind of shooting the middle of what could be an extreme maintenance or repair issue.
All right.
Yeah, I don't know if you were able to see the budget reports with these drafts and the system. You're able to go in there and you can take a deep dive on, you want to see expenses, and it'll break down. Kind of get down to the granular level.
And if anybody has any specific questions, I'm glad to talk to them afterwards or whenever it's convenient.
Budget information, if that had not been just attachments, it would have been a lot more than 194 pages for this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, we'd like to go to more links.
All right, with that, we're going to move on to where are we at here? Number 9, Register of Deeds, land information. I see we have nobody here from Register of Deeds, but they had their information, which money they made for that. So, okay. Number 10, Land and Water Management Department. A, discussion items, soil health initiative.
Yeah, today with the Land and Water, myself is, my name is Jeff Schramm, and then Katie Vogler is present as well. She was hired back in January to be our soil health expert to help people. She worked with Kettle Lakes Co-op in the past. So I guess the one thing, share the board.
As part of the Clean Farm Family Group, they were awarded a champion of conservation from the Lake Michigan Stakeholders Group. They were awarded about 2 weeks ago. Andrew, thank you for being part of that. So this will be hung up on the Clean Farm Family office at Mellicar Broad Acres, where the Clean Farm Families meets monthly, bi-monthly. Summer months it's bi-monthly because they're all busy. So this will go there. This is honoring them and their producer-led efforts of their education of the soil health practices. So since I'm out talking, I'll just give you a quick update. Yes, I have been here since January, but I know those Ozaki County farmers very well. The interseeder drill has been a hit. We have about 91 acres to do yet this fall. So after corn comes off, putting cover crops, no-tilled into the ground. Interseeder is purchased. The first showing of it will be hopefully this Friday, which is the flyer that I gave you guys. It's our manure pop-up day. Dave Eisentrout is demonstrating his manure injection rig at a field of Mike Paulus's just north of the soil health plot. So if you guys want to come out and see it, it's open to the public, no RSVP needed. Just an educational event to show farmers that the practice of low disturbance manure injection versus surface applied. I'm going to have a copy of Mike Paulus's nutrient analysis. So if any member of the community is asking, well, what rate is he putting on? Is this agronomically appropriate? How much is being applied? Any sort of questions, we're going to be there to answer it. So, and then you have my card if you have any other questions.
Okay. Right. We'll go to number B, management financial information reports. Number 1, soil health demo cover crop plot, October 6, 2022.
I guess that was a date that where the demo farms are going to be having a cover crop day. Anybody, I mean, you're going to be mailed information as well. It's just a day we try to get landowners just to see their options. And this is going to be by I'll say a cash grain type operation versus anybody who has cattle. So that's a different look at cover crop. Yeah, cover crops.
Okay, number 2, we've already done the manure pop-up building. Yeah, that's what.
That's what Katie had just shared with you.
Number 3, Southeast Area Association Fall Tour, October 12th.
Yeah, we're in Ozaki County. We're in this, the whole state is broken out into these little area associations, and we're in the southeast, of course. So there's ourselves and 7 other counties, and every year they kind of rotate. They kind of showcase some project or something in the counties. And technically, Milwaukee was supposed to be this year, but they used an excuse of having a person retire, and the new person didn't want to do it. So then they came to Ozaki, and I tried to get out of it by saying, well, Andy's retired. And they said, no, you're going to give the tour. So anyhow, I started out, it's going to be October 12th, and we're going to take a look at Grafton, the village of Grafton, the wastewater treatment plant, and kind of tie in how they're doing adaptive management with farmers doing practices on the land versus them spending lots of money in concrete and steel infrastructure to upgrade their plant. So we're going to go there. Then we're going to go over to Appleland to kind of just take a peek at their operation on County Highway B. And then from there, we're going to go to our Highway 57 plot, showcase a few pieces of equipment that we have rented, that we can rent out area landowners to utilize. And then just want to talk about our class there as well. So it'll be a short and quick day.
It'll be a bus that takes people.
It'll be a bus. I have to get a bus and then the committee, of course, would be invited. I know in the past, I looked at when it was done back in 2014, some of the committee members were here and the committee chair, which would be you, Rob, just did kind of a welcome that morning. And then before they got on the bus, and if you wanted to attend as well, but that's all preliminary right now. So by the next meeting, there will be a flyer and a better agenda and everything. What happened was previously I had a different number one stop, but then they came back to me about 2 weeks ago and said, we only allow it up to 20 people. So then I had to change things. So that's what happened there.
Okay, cool. Number 4, land and water management reports. Anything was in the packet? Any questions about that from anybody? Now we'll move on to number 11, Planning and Parks Department action items. Number 1, increase in revenue budget amendment for the Wisconsin Department of Transportation alternatives.
Yes.
Program grants for the documents for.
We make a motion to approve the,
Motion from Bruce. Second from Tony. Any discussion?
I do have one question. Wisconsin did a local force account determination study and determined that local force account support cannot be used for project construction. What does that mean?
Probably a kind way of saying that, because of DOT regulations, they do not allow local force account work at all. So we submitted it with the idea, we had in the past, historically, we've used local force account. We like to use local force account. They've changed the statutory rules for these grants and it's no longer allowed. So 2 things as part of that grant, we did some cost estimating and budget estimating with our highway department. We are now going to have to bid it. So that's essentially what that means. We have to bid it, private contractor. We have to use that process. The other thing is that they're requiring us to do engineering and design. That gets formally done and approved or submitted to DOT, and then they put their fees on top of it for reviewing it. So there's going to be some additional cost for sure. But having said that, it's still a significant contribution towards getting it done.
So what's the outside risk on that? We have estimated 1.25.
Yeah, we did a very conservative estimate. I worked with our highway department and they looked at new asphalt rates and stuff like that. So the one thing that was not anticipated, it was engineering and design, but we think we can do it pretty cost effectively because, we're not adding anything else like new culverts or having to deal with drainage. So really it's a mill and then an overlay with asphalt. So there shouldn't be a lot of engineering design, but was not anticipated in our cost estimate. And the other was the DOT design review fees, which can be significant. So upside of that is probably in the neighborhood of 50,000. So on a $1 million grant, it's a lot of money, but it's proportional. It's not too significant. So we hope to manage it as best we can, and we've had good proposals and competition for engineering and design work before for the trail, as well as we haven't bid for asphalt, so we'll see other construction, but
That's where my greater concern is what's going to cost us to actually lay the asphalt.
so like I said, I worked mainly with our highway department, but they used conservative or high estimates for the paving cost. So I think we have enough in there, but we will never know truly until we go to bidding. And how competitive it is, you know, for the private companies. I would say it's a big job. I mean, it's over 13 miles. Relatively speaking, a big job. It's not a DOT freeway job, but relatively speaking, it's a big job. So I would hope that we could get competitive bidding. I don't know how to answer that question other than we probably truly won't know until we go to bid. I should say too, if it wasn't clear, we would follow very, you know, specific DOT process for the grant, the engineering design, the review, approval, et cetera. So largely 2023 will be engineering and design. 2024 would actually be construction probably. If we can move that forward, we certainly will, but it's likely that that'll be the design process.
Yeah, there's a couple spots that there's gravel on that trail, I think, right?
There is a spot that I've been getting pretty much an email a day about in the town of Belgium. Section of the trail was taken out along with the road because they plan on resurfacing that. So that's a large project in the town/village to resurface that whole road. They cut it out to the right of way and then a little bit further. I just talked to John Edgren at the highway department yesterday to see if they had a loose gravel used, which isn't great for cyclists. So I just asked if they could put in some fines and compact it so that it was a hard gravel surface. They did not know a timeline for the village town for repaving. So unfortunately, probably is going to remain that way for a bit. And then, of course, you know, we've shown you previous maps and stuff, but trail really is starting to significantly deteriorate on the north end in particular. This, by the way, is just repaving the county managed portion. So it will not deal with the stretches through the municipalities or those stretches that are substandard. We have a few in Grafton and Seaburg.
That's I rode that a couple of weeks ago, and that gravel was really.
It's very loose. So normally we put in fines.
Is the deterioration due to water?
Certainly it is, yeah. And we've, over the last probably 6-8 years, we've been doing a lot with culvert and drainage and stuff. But having said that, you know, we still just sometimes get water sitting on the trail and then ultimately.
Well, it's just because we live in Wisconsin, you got your freezing and thawing and so on and so forth. If we need more under drainment, you know, would be more cost effective in the long run.
Yes. So one of the hopes is with the repaving, and certainly we'll do this through the bidding, but one of the hopes is that, you know, if we do a full mill of what we have, we'll get a little bit better base up there. Surprisingly, the trail has held up remarkably well. 20 years is remarkable, and it's largely because we had a railroad base, but I would say that the railroad base was less compacted and less, you know, free of issues on the northern end as opposed to the municipalities, just because in municipalities they've been driving on it and stuff as gravel for a long time, and the upper stretch was kind of abandoned for a long time. So there was a lot of base put down, but this should help that. We've also worked on some significant drainage issues, and in the last 2 or 3 years, we just re-shouldered the whole project, and we were able to, because of the large storms, we were able to get a significant amount of FEMA funding to do that. That has significantly helped the drainage also. But definitely the pavement is showing its age now. So and once it starts down that path, it really is very difficult to repair. You can try and pothole fill, but it really just doesn't hold as there's a freeze on it just pop. We caused the trail for the cracks and stuff, but it just really gets difficult. The last thing I'll say is on the northern reach, we also are significantly challenged because good portions of that reach goes through wetlands. The railroad did that at the time. That wasn't anything we did, but it's low in areas, right? So we have a lot of water drainage things to contend with. not to mention vegetation.
All right, I'm gonna call for the vote. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Number 2, increase of revenue budget amendment for the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources, Knowles Nelson Stewardship Local Assistant Grant for acquiring or portions of partial IDs. 1105005060003. 1105005040001. 1105005100001. 11050050200. Along County Highway Trunk W and the Wisconsin, the Milwaukee River in the village of Stockville for floodplain and wetland restoration per
Yeah, Wisconsin statutes.
Wisconsin statute 59.52, para 6, para A, and 27.025, para 1, para A. Wisconsin statutes is part of the Wisconsin Highway Trunk W Road reconstruction and restoration project.
I'll make the recommended motion.
I'll second.
And a motion by Bruce, seconded by Barb. Any discussion?
Do we know there was some question on negotiations with the adjacent landowner and
Yeah,
I kind of, that was real sensitive, so we didn't want to discuss it too much. So where are we at now?
Still in a similar spot, although Highway is moving forward with their acquisition of the right-of-way portion. With this funding, it will allow them to minimize the amount that they have to acquire that direction, and then we would negotiate the willing seller. So all the statutory references, et cetera, as a willing seller, willing buyer. So this gives us the opportunity to start that negotiation, really.
Comments?
I just look at this, if you're familiar with the whole project, and it's like, it's a no-brainer, we just have to do this, and I don't think, as far as acquisition, I don't think you're gonna have any opposition anywhere. It'll be by state statute, what they get,
Yeah, I mean,
and what the land is.
yeah, of course, we've gotten appraisals that were prepared as part of the grant. We have that as a basis. The landowner is, can likely also request an appraisal, and then we'll go from there. But we do have an idea based on our state federal appraisal that we submit as part of the grant.
My hope is that this will work and we improve things, because that's been on all my lifetime, it's like that's been a problem. And the changes and what's happening with nature, you just wonder what's next.
Yeah, and I think I said this last time, but just quickly as a reminder, the road construction, which basically requires an elevation of the road to make it safer. We're never going to get it out of 100-year floodplain, but we can get it out of 10-year floodplain and significantly reduce the impacts to the road and the shouldering and stuff. That all only can be made possible by creating some capacity in the floodplain, which this project would allow. So they're very much linked.
Just to follow up on that then. So this is to buy the property. This is not to,
Yes, correct.
it's not to do the model 1 project, restore the hydrology or open up capacity or.
That's correct. However, having said that, the match that we're suggesting here is a Fish and Wildlife grant, which has made it through the next step. So we were one of a few submitted in the Midwest region. We came out of the Midwest region at the top for our proposal, which is both allows for some acquisition funds and the restoration project. So we're still waiting, but it's looking positive as we move to a national competition now.
Okay, I'm gonna call for the vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion passed. To number 3, increase the revenue budget amendment for Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources, Knowles Nelson Stewardship Local Assistance Grant for construction of public bathrooms and showers at the Hawthorne Hills County Park Multipurpose Parks Maintenance Facility. Anything to add about that, or is?
I can discuss unless you wanna, I don't know if we need to do a motion first or not. Okay. So as you recall, this was applied to finish basically the upper level and the public portion, which is what DNR can fund with their local assistance grants. Very fortunate. Stewardship's extremely competitive. To get two grants in this round was a little surprising and very good news. Extremely competitive, but this would help us complete the construction of the upper level of the maintenance building, basically the public facing portion with bathrooms, showers, and the large room. Yeah, that's what these funds would go towards. One thing that we're still negotiating with the DNR a little bit, it really is a timing thing. It's not so much a negotiation. We can't count any match or expenditures until the grant is fully executed. Hence kind of moving forward with the approvals here. So we would be able to count some of the ongoing construction now, because we're of course building the upper level as well, the shell of it. We're just not building the inside, and that could be used as match. So not knowing exactly when this grant was going to come through in the contract, there's kind of this mix of using existing capital from our current construction as match, also using our staff time to complete some of the work inside that's not required by licensed individuals, plumbers, electricians, etc. So we can do a lot of drywall, and then finishing it. So we're looking at that hybrid in order to minimize the the match impact, if you will, of the grant.
Why don't we get a motion and then we can discuss it? Motion to approve this? Motion by Kurt. Bruce seconded it. Okay. Bruce, questions?
This then presumes that pending Ozaukee County Capital Fund grant request will be approved.
It would require a match, and yes, there would be a pending county capital fund project grant, which has not obviously been taken up yet, so it is pending. Like I said, that amount we're hoping to minimize, and part of doing that is we could easily claim up to 150 of existing construction. Just depends on the timing of when this comes through. So could be negligible, it could be more. But yes, it does anticipate that mix of investment. Yeah, I think we have multiple options and ways to fund this. I think without understanding the full, because the match is somewhat fluid, we're okay moving forward. But seeking the grant money, and the grant money itself in terms of the factors we use to score projects for the capital fund would make this project more high scoring project just by that. So I think because of those things and cash position of the county, we're all right proceeding with a bit of unknown on 2 bits of unknown on what the county match will be for this project.
All right, call for the vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion passes. Number 4, resolution submittal and acceptance of the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources Surface Water Planning Grant to support water quality monitoring activities on the Little Menominee River and Creek, Bull Creek, and Uleo Creek in Ozaukee County. Is there a Little Menominee River Creek? Is that our?
There's a Little Menominee Creek, and it's tributary to Little Menominee River. And I think actually, if you look, I believe there's a map in your packet, right? So on page 85, you can see there it's labeled. It comes in from the west. It's actually a beautiful creek. It has a really good fisheries. Water quality has been really good. So yeah, it's a nice creek. This is a continuation of what we've been doing and really trying to monitor water quality on these particular creeks, particularly where we've done restoration, and the DNR is very excited for us to continue to do this continual long-term monitoring because we have a really good data set going now. Actually encouraged us to apply.
Okay, I should get a motion. So I'm looking for a motion and a second to approve it. Motion by Bruce,
I'll fucking
second by Barb. Discussion?
discussion. My same concern has been here for ages of that section in the town of Saco,
Yeah.
Eldon. No movement on that at all.
No movement. We do have funds available. There hasn't been any movement. I have to be honest, I haven't reached out recently, meaning in the last year.
She's still alive, isn't she? Or
My understanding, but the property, I believe, is in a trust. So I think, so no movement with the landowner. There is funds available though, and we've discussed that with the DNR. There are the same stream bank easement funds that were used on either side of Mole Creek. They're extremely interested, and just a note on that is we're working right now with the DNR. Because of our fisheries data and our water quality data, they're looking to designate Mole Creek as a trout stream, which is actually a pretty cool thing in Ozaukee County because we're really far south. There's many more in Washington County, but this would really be our only one. But because of the data supporting, we can do that. So I don't know, there's interest, there's funding. We just haven't had any movement going on it.
This is, I've been for the whole project. I mean, it's been successful, but this is a long time that we can't get that little section. I always feel, you're doing this end and you're doing that end, but in the middle, we can't get through.
We'll keep working on it. I certainly can make an attempt to approach the landowner again. We haven't done it recently, I have to admit. So, and actually if the designation, it's a pretty lengthy process for the trout stream, but the DNR has been working with us on it and we've submitted our data and stuff. If that goes through, there would actually be additional funds available for those easements. So again, it would just be trying to find something that will work for them. I think there's still active agriculture, but much less than there had been.
I was gonna say, it's still under plow.
Some of it, not as much as it used to be.
There aren't any trout in there, right?
There were, actually the DNR stocked both brook and brown, and they did survive. We have not caught any in our trapping. They did survive. This was a long time ago. I want to say pre-2000s that they did it. They did, and DNR did some subsequent trapping. They caught them 2 or 3 years later, but we have not seen them since. So one thing, but we've seen a lot of other cold water fish in large numbers like sculpin. So that's a pretty good indicator that both the water quality is good and the temperature is good. So the answer is maybe, we don't know for sure.
In Mequon, it's been cited by some residents north of where you had that done in Mequon, that basically we are draining slower because of that. When you keep monitoring and changing, how can we keep the same flow?
Well, the flow really should not be impacted at all. The meandering is just for a low flow situation.
Right.
So it doesn't affect a high flow flood situation. We haven't seen the flows any different through Little Menominee through all of our monitoring. We're still doing analysis on all the water level data.
Because I have 3 farmers north of Mequon Road that state that we're draining slower now.
Yeah, and we've talked to some of them. I think part of that is, I don't think it's a function of the project because we're far south. I think part of it in the headwaters is the amount of vegetation encroachment in that reach.
Well, it's vegetation up that way, but they feel that we've shrunk it in your meandering.
The floodplain is actually significantly larger. So for anything that's a high flow, it's just out of banks. So, it's significantly larger now.
I guess the worry is when it starts to grass in. we take that more in consideration when we do projects.
Right, we did model it with trees and grass in the floodway.
So it's just a concern. I'd like
We'll
you to
keep,
know.
we'll keep watching. I appreciate it. We'll keep watching and monitoring it. We are taking flows, water levels, everything in that reach and throughout when we do our water quality as well.
Do you monitor those things above the project?
Yeah. So these grants allow, you can see our sampling sites go all the way up to Freistadt and all the way down to County Line Road on that map. That's on page 85. So, you know, it takes a long time to crunch the data, unfortunately, and we don't get a lot of resources to cover that time. So it takes us some time to move through that data management. The priority for the DNR is the water quality data, but we have to take these other parameters like flow and volume and cross sections. But yes, we do that all the way up and down.
Just thinking, how do we address Kurt's related concerns about the flow through grid? Because that was one of the concerns right from the get-go. And yeah, I got convinced that the design accommodated that, the high flow, you know, wider banks allowed that. But if we monitor the north side of that project, I mean, we can compare that with the pre-existing.
We're not seeing, you know, just from water level in the creek, we're not seeing that. But, you know, there's other things going on. You know, there was some things in Uleo Creek too. So the loss of ash trees has a huge impact because you get a lot less of evapotranspiration. So sometimes, yeah, it could be encroaching further up into the farm field area, but we're not seeing that water level change within the stream proper or even the immediate floodplain.
That stream up north of the project area, and there's a lot of stuff that's fallen down into.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's blocking it, but there is a lot of there's a lot more roughness in the old channel than there is in the new channel. So to the point of
Right, I'm just repeating what they've told me.
I appreciate that, sir. Yeah, and we're gonna keep watching it.
And so, and I even noticed it on our family's property that's next to it. I mean, it right now, it should be, for as dry as it's been, it should be bone dry down there, and I just made hay down there, and it's not for this time of year, you know, so.
Yeah, so we walk a lot of these sites to get access. You know, some of our sites are wet. So I'll say, you know, one that we noticed right away, we have really high volumes around County Line Road. So we went to investigate that, and down in Milwaukee County, there's a significant beaver dam, actually, that's backing up over a mile of water. And we noticed that from our water quality monitoring. So I think my point is I think there's a lot going on. I don't know that this stretch is having that impact, but I think the loss of the trees, the roughness in the channel, other factors like, and I'm not saying that upper watershed, this is a factor, but we know for a fact that the beaver is having a significant impact downstream. It's actually backwatering it significantly.
And you could be onto something with the trees, because we have a lot of dead ash trees, so.
There's a lot in that old channel, and it's, but, so to your question, Bruce, we'll just keep monitoring. It's not something we can determine overnight. And I really, from what I've seen from our data and what we've seen on site and immediate, we're not seeing the impact like that.
So the idea of sharing that, I mean, obviously, given the interest that it had at the time, if we have data to share that would help address that concern, that might be a useful prioritization of whatever data crunching ability you have.
We could do that, and we're having some of the same discussions. Some of the Uleo Creek partnership, and also why they want to look at that as well. So we're trying to crunch through that flow data and the continuous monitoring data that we have. And again, what it really looks like is what that fluctuation is in the cross section of the creek and the floodplain. So, but yes, we can share it.
There was a fence that went across one part of the.
Still is. It's north of our.
That collected a bunch of crap.
Still collects debris. Again, I wouldn't say it's restricting flow. My my experience is there is a lot down. During high flows, that stuff definitely impacts it. During low flows, not so much.
I think it's just that they're seeing it slower during a storm, you know, when we do get rain, it's taking longer to dry off,
That's probably, yeah, high flows and then.
you know, and trees and everything's contributing. Like you're saying,
is.
I get it.
It is, and we'll continue to watch that, and we will share, we'll try and prioritize that.
I mean, there's just a large concern when it sods up that it's gonna be really
Yeah, I know.
slow, you know.
Well, so just south of Freistadt, you know, we walk in that field and he takes, the residential person that he takes off there. That field actually has been remarkably dry this year, me walking in, so I know there was an issue up in the very upper reach of Freistadt, and, I was surprised, remarkably dry there, but, and hot.
South of Price Road,
South.
southeast,
Yeah, southeast.
by Dam.
Yeah.
I don't know what the last name is, but that's very wet in there, trust me. If you wanna make the hay there, you can lose equipment.
Could be. We walked it last month and it was actually drier than when we've gone to.
There's holes in there that will just swallow you up, so.
All those trees are gonna fall. That's really not our responsibility, is the.
No, I mean, there's not much we can do about it. And again,
Basically, you have the legal right to clean the ditch out or
The
the
landowner.
creek out.
Yeah.
Landowner, or if he's blocking it, landowners above it can clean it out, I
Yeah,
understand by state statute.
yeah, landowners can remove debris from the channel. County can't without the landowner's permission. And through our stretch, we don't have any down trees at the moment.
So there's no debris that can be pointed to that can be removed at a neighboring landowner's desire.
On the county part. Debris. No, I mean, that site was totally created. Yeah, there's no debris on our site. And there was actually substantial, but, again, it's a super low gradient stream. It was a wetland.
We've got a long schedule, but
Yeah.
the idea of those project possibilities further upstream, the green seam zone properties, not in this agenda, but maybe there's some value to it, some future NRC meeting, giving us an update on where that might be.
Sure. Absolutely. Yep.
All right. I am gonna call a question. We have a motion and a second, I believe, right? Okay. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Number 5, submittal and acceptance of a We Energies Foundation grant for engineering and design of a stormwater wetland restoration at Vermont County Park.
Yeah, so we got some preliminary, very good news from Coastal Management that we received funding for the stormwater wetland in Vermont. We are in the process of working through a Fund for Lake Michigan submittal, and our initial LOI was also, so this would be supplemental match funds, specifically largely to help us with the engineering and design from We Energies. The one thing I will say is that we just heard back from the Brookby Foundation on a small grant towards this project that was not funded. Which is a little surprising to me because that was the first year, but I guess their priorities have shifted a little bit. First year in probably a decade. But anyway, this We Energies grant would help with match on those other grants, which are favorably moving forward or have been tentatively awarded. And I think that is noted in the analysis for the match.
Recommended motion.
Motion by Bruce, second by Tony. Discussion. Hearing now, I'll call the question. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Number 6, submittal and acceptance of an American Transmission Company Community Planting Program grant for native tree planting activities in Clay Bluff, Cedar Gorge Nature Preserve, County Park.
We've been very fortunate to receive significant ATC funds over last several years. They're small grants, but very useful for match, particularly for our urban forestry grant efforts through the DNR. So that's this submittal.
We have a motion by Tony, second by Kurt. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Seven, submittal and acceptance of American Transmission Company pollinator habitat grant program for native prairie restoration activities in Hawthorne Hills County Park.
Yeah, similar, they have a prairie restoration program. County board yesterday, you accepted or for applying for some other additional funds for this as well. So again, this is supporting that project effort. We've been successful twice with TENDEC on this program as well with ATC.
Motion by Barb, second by Bruce. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Number 8, bid contract for security cameras in the Ozark purposes.
Okay, so we bid this a little bit ago, as you recall, and we held the bid because it's very much paired to our gates and electrical service to the various facilities. We are, so included in the packet was all those that bid, everybody that pulled the facilities, and then the series of maps to show you where we're doing cameras. Most of these cameras are associated with the gates, so that we, like I said, it's paired with being able to have electronic remote gates, if you will. So we are recommending the low bid. In this case, we had 5 bids back in July. We're recommending the base, which will allow us to do Lions Den, Vermont, and TENDEC, and also the Lions Den bathroom pavilion. So Code Red Security was the low bid, and we have a 15% contingency on that for a not to exceed of $32,258, which was within our allocated budget for the security cameras. And again, like I said, we're kind of balancing this all together with the next ones, which is the gate.
Recommended motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Bruce, seconded by Kurt. Any other discussion?
Why was Imperial surveillance 3 times as much?
Well, some of them use a lot more robust software, but also some of them just had some uncertainties about electrical delivery, and some of them just frankly have different camera systems that cost more. But I realized that there was a huge difference in the type of software and the abilities, and you can get everything from totally remote and synced up, with the police and sheriff's departments to something that's a little bit more meaningful. So we tried to take the balance there. We feel good about the bid though, because we're getting the most value for our dollar with Code Red.
I wasn't recommending we go to the.
No.
I did, there was such a large difference. I just want to make sure that we're not just taking the cheapest, that there's,
No, we looked at it. The one thing that we won't, it is not the same system that the sheriff is on. You may have heard that they have and part of the large reason we can't do that is because we don't have Wi-Fi at most of these parks. So it's just not possible for us to do that without it. And we looked at Wi-Fi delivery to the parks, and it's kind of astronomical for us to do that. So we won't be able to do that, but we're hoping somewhere down the road. And Code Red too, we talked to them about that. We hope we could sync it up at some point. So, but we did talk to the sheriff. But again, I think we're going to get what we need.
And the sheriff was okay with this.
Yeah, I don't know if they looked at our recommendation. I did talk to them about, they were recommending using the same company, but again, it's not, we can't get the same system. that they have. It's not
I
possible.
get that.
Yes. I don't know,
Default where they'll do it.
I don't know that the sheriff, I mean, they're definitely okay with us having some remote surveillance that they can get, and we're gonna be responsible for the downloads and stuff, so we will give the data to the sheriff, so they're definitely okay with that, because it means less on them.
Discussion?
Faithful.
All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. There was a motion on that, right? Yeah. Okay, let's move on to number 9, bid and contract for electrical service in the electrical services.
So if you recall, we had originally we paired the electrical services and the gates together, and we only got the one bid, and so we split that apart. The electrical service is, far more complicated and substantial than we had anticipated. But we did get, you can see people that pulled it, but we did only have 2 bids, Curtin and J Miller Electric. We're recommending going with J Miller. They were actually the previous bid that was the combined electric and gate. But we separated them apart because we're hoping to do the general and buy the direct gate and also use some of our existing gates and basically electrify them and put the motor on to make them electric. We're doing all that because we just didn't have the budget. If you recall, the budget was substantially over what we had. So we're trying to work this through and get the service. So we are recommending J Miller Electric, and then also 15% contingency not to exceed 58,802. And this gets us the electrical services that I mentioned for the gate and the cameras to Lionsden, Vermont, and Tendick. Just a quick note, we bid a whole bunch of alternates as well for the other parks. We hope that, subsequent capital and subsequent years, we can start to work on those. But these were the core base bid ones that we wanted to accomplish. So recommendation is for the low bid from J Miller Electric.
Are they boring in these lines or in conduit or?
A little of both. So they will bore where they need to go under. We have one where they have to bore underneath our asphalt path at Tendick, but otherwise they'll be open trenching them and then putting them conduit.
Okay, so in the future, they can pull other lines through
Yep, and
as
we're
technology increases.
absolutely, and we're putting in an oversized conduit also so that we can accommodate not only and different phases. I'm not an electrician, but we're going to have 2 separate, one for the camera, one for the gate. They run on different amperages and be able to set it down.
You would probably, if you didn't have them separate, they'd probably interfere with.
I guess. Yeah, and we need a step down for the camera. So yeah, well, but thank you. That's all been worked through as part of the bidding. So we will have future expansion, and we'll be able to have that conduit for both gate and camera.
Sounds good.
Okay, I think we need a motion and a second. Motion by Kurt. Second. By Barb. Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none, I will ask all in favor. Say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, bid and contract for barn painting at Mequon County Park and Golf Course.
Yeah, thanks. This is another capital project that we had funding for. We split the painting from the siding, they're slightly 2 different projects, so you'll see that. In this case, it was under 25,000, so we did not have to formally bid it. So we got as many proposals as we could. Contractors were very busy, but we did get 2 proposals. In this case, for the barn painting, we're actually accepting the higher of the two bids. Sorry, no, I'm sorry, not this one. We're accepting the low bid finish specialist for the barn painting, with a 15% contingency, not to exceed some $18,938. That was finished specialist of the two proposals. And again, this one was just done on proposals as it was under 25,000. So this is the recommended motion.
Motion by Bruce, second by Kurt. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll call the vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you.
Number 11, bid and contract for siding the old maintenance building at Mequon County Park and Golf Course.
Yeah, and this one I jumped ahead a little bit. This is our old maintenance building at Mequon. In this case, we are actually recommending Mike Koenig as the recommended bid for a not to exceed sum of $30,950 with a 15% contingency. Some of the advantages for this one in selecting Koenig was that he constructed our new maintenance building. He's able to get an exact match on the siding and the soffits. And we're also adding for $3,940, they were going to do the soffit and fascia, which makes sense for us and will be supplemented by golf course funds in this case. So in this case, we are actually suggesting Mike Koenig, which was for $30,950, largely because they can make it the exact match and the exact siding we have with our new maintenance building. These two buildings, if you aren't familiar, are directly adjacent to each other, and we're trying to make that whole campus match.
I make that recommended motion.
Motion by Bruce, second by Koenig. Any discussion? Matt, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Moving right along. Number 12, bid and contract for boardwalk and observation deck and platform at Lionsden.
So we did put this out to bid as well. This is also another capital project. We did only receive one bid. We had a lot of people pull it. A lot of these contractors that do the platforms and docks and things, I guess, are not that familiar with formal bidding. And so they were a little bit hesitant or needed a general contractor. And we heard from a couple people that they couldn't get a general contractor to work with them on the bid submittal. So we only had one from Lake Country Barge. It significantly exceeded our budget, which I was a little bit surprised by. So we, the amount $165,000, which is a double, really. So in this case, we're recommending that we reject it. We are going to try the same process we did through the gates and stuff. We're going to try and get proposals for a direct material purchase and then try and do local force account installation for the project, just because you can see we reached out to a lot of people too as far as bids. So I think that's going to be our process to go forward. But anyway, this recommendation for right now is to reject the single bid, and we'll come back to it.
Reject the bid.
Bruce made the motion.
Bob made the motion to reject, right?
Bruce. Yes.
And I second.
Second. Barb seconded. This is a motion to reject the contract. I'll call it vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries to reject the contract. And number B, discussion items. Number 1, update on Hawthorne Hills County Park multi-purpose parks maintenance building change orders.
Yeah, so we did have 2 significant change orders. or well, one significant change order really. They were split into two. It had a lot, it was very similar to Covered Bridge. Once we got into it, which not totally surprised by, but you know, we're in a higher area there at Hawthorne Hill, so I wasn't expecting a lot of groundwater or other things that would impact the soils or the foundation, but we did. We hit a gravel seam with the excavation, and we have a significant groundwater contribution at the foundation level. So we needed to make some quick decisions because they were actually out there trying to pour foundations. So they had to over excavate, pour in a slurry underneath the foundation. None of this is really rocket science. It's what's done when you find poor soils. In this case, it wasn't so much the poor soils as it was the groundwater contribution, which made the soil poor. So we had to also contract with Justra, which is the firm through our architect that does the soil evaluation. So there's going to be some additional costs for that. And we had to adjust the foundation floor a little bit with the over excavation and the slurry and stuff like that. So we're enclosing the building slightly differently with that foundation wall. There will be another change order that we're anticipating that will come separately, which is to put in a French drain to pick up that groundwater contribution, run it around the backside into our stormwater facility, and then once through the stormwater, it'll go out to the wetland. So again, not anything that's too unique, but we hadn't anticipated having that. So change order, it is within our contingency as well as what we're anticipating for future costs of the soil consultant and the French drain installation, which you probably will get at the next meeting. I'll probably need to move forward with those change orders as they're not moving forward. So those were the change orders. And then we added the other smaller change order, which happened at the same time with the foundation work, as we did add a interior garage door so we can move vehicles interior to the building without having to take them out back in. So that was one change that we also did since we were working on revisions to the foundation plan. So it allows us to move vehicles, particularly in winter for maintenance activities.
How did the change in the foundation that you just described and the water needs 3 weeks worth of carpenter time?
The carpenter time is the change in the outside, the exterior wall. We're pouring a wall there and doing the carpentry work on that exterior wall, which has changed from the original. So it was an addition. That exterior wall was an addition and a change based on the situation that we found with the foundation. So we're redoing the foundation, the exterior foundation wall, and the carpentry work is for the wall.
Anything else? I'm going to move on to number 2, update on Lions Den Gorge Nature Preserve Pavilion, Covered Bridge County Park Pavilion, and H.H. Peters Youth Camp building, remodel and construction.
Yeah, so I was hoping to say that they're 100% done, but Lions Den Pavilion is done. We just made the final payment balance closed out. We've got the punch list item done. The one issue that we are having at Lions Den right now, though, which we're still trying to work through, is the remote electronic locks that we got. We're having a real hard time getting anybody to service them or help us with them. The software is $1,600, which we weren't made aware of. So now we're looking at a different lock system, basically. So unfortunately, the locks were part of our architect's recommendation, and they're good locks. They're just maybe more than we needed, and also some things were left out, and also not a local vendor. We've been calling all around, actually 22 companies all the way up to Waukesha to get somebody to help us with the installation. It seems a little silly that a lock can be that complicated, but in fact they are. So in doing all that research to figure out that lock, we're actually looking at probably a different lock system. And so we're going through for all of our facilities, because covered bridge, the locks likely could be returned. We're working through that. The maintenance building isn't done yet. So Lions Den is the only one that we're still trying to work through whether we can return those or sell them back. But bottom line is, though, the new lock system that we're hoping to go towards has local support, has a local vendor. They've been very responsive and available to us. It's a more common Schlage lock that we have on our other facilities. Again, it just wasn't picked up as far as all the things that went into the building. So at Lions Den, the problem is we still can't open the bathrooms because the electronic lock, we don't have the software for it, and it locks it automatically. And we have a key. We have a key to get in, but we can't leave it open. So we're working on that. That'll be part of working out the locks. Covered bridge you can get in and out of because we don't have the software hooked up, but we're looking to switch those locks out, and then we'll get the new version of locks for the maintenance building. Covered bridge is substantially done too. Again, it was just the lock issue. And H.H. Peters, we finally are working through the punch list there. There was a couple of things. The shower needed to be redone because it wasn't draining correctly, the ADA shower. So they did redo that. And then there's just some painting and staining in there. We're hoping to have that done by the end of this week to close that grant out. And we're working with Jason Wick on the steps for grant reimbursement on those. So I definitely hope that all three of these projects will be completely done and functional by the end of next month.
I'm going to, coming back from the meeting, stopped in and the Lions Den. Oh, the bathrooms look great. I got out of the car. I just want to see what they look like on the inside. I was like, oh.
Everybody's been doing that. They're like, oh, it looks done. Why aren't the bathrooms open? So we are having that issue. I mean, we can get in, but it's a lock issue. We're moving as fast as we can to get it resolved. It just was not anticipated.
Yes, we still have to have porta potties out there then.
Right. So that's currently the case. Like I said, I hope a month from now, and it'll be end of season, but I hope a month from now we'll have all that resolved. And we'll have a system that'll work really well for us. So the other thing is the new lock system, we can do a key fob. So as employees come and go, particularly seasonal employees, we can issue them a fob, but then we can just deactivate it. We don't have a bunch of keys floating around, which is, our current situation. So going to an electronic lock is definitely what we want to do. We can also sync it with the gates, things like that. But it's far more complicated than I anticipated. So we're getting there. I hope to have them open.
And we can talk about this, but there's blacktop at Lions Den Gorge too, right? So
Yeah, the other capital project that was finished, highway, they did a great job and really turned out fabulous. We have a total of 88 spots, a motorcycle parking area, just a narrow one, 4 handicap spots. So I think it'll greatly improve it. The flow through there, the drainage through there, everything is going to be great. We'll work on restoration here in the coming month, so seeding and stuff. But that capital project worked well. I think it'll be a little bit more than we had budgeted, but I'm waiting to see the final highway build on that one.
all right, update on historic covered bridge.
Yeah, I think maybe it was mentioned. I can't remember if it was mentioned yesterday or not, but there is a delay in working on the historic covered bridge because it looks like we're going to have to go back and actually publicly bid it as opposed to doing it under an emergency situation. And that's been talked about at Public Works, I know, but it might be late this year before we can get to the construction of the historic covered bridge. And the other thing is a positive outcome. It looks like maybe we won't have to stage on the new auto bridge that like we thought, or at least not directly on it to like for a closure. So I know the town of Cedarburg is interested in what that is going to look like, and So there is a possibility that we won't have to have a road closure in order to work on it. But I think the bottom line is that we're gonna have to go through a public bidding process on that one now. So it's gonna extend the timeline out. So still closed.
Number 4, update on planning and parks capital projects and ecological division grant projects.
Yeah, we've had several core groups here doing invasive species work for us. We have one last group of core coming this fall. They'll be doing some woody invasive species removal. At several county parks, we'll probably starting them up by Hawthorne Hills. And so I'm going there. That's been a good, really good situation. So that group that's coming in fall is a WISCOR group. They're a paid contractor that we were able to get. We applied for another AmeriCorps group. We had one earlier in the summer, if you recall. We did not get them. They've been really tied up with emergency response stuff, so we did not get a team for fall. But it's pretty unlikely that we would get 2 teams in a single year anyway. Anyway, those projects are going forward. We did a number of prairie seedings in June, and those we're working on and are coming in well. So yeah, I think that's all I have.
All right, number 5, update on Clay Bluffs Cedar Gorge Nature Preserve acquisition.
Well, it's a county park. Yeah, I just want to take a minute to I know there was a lot of, recent press and stuff about the remaining 2.3 in the grant, and that was significant and very, appreciated. But I do want to take just a minute to thank my staff who worked like the last 10 years on the original 2.6, which made the project possible. So that's 6 federal agencies and a lot of work. I can tell you that it did come down to the last day of closing to sort out some things with the Forest Service on the agricultural agreement. So we were right up to the deadline on getting stuff through. But again, I just want to thank all my staff. Every one of them worked really diligently on everything we had to do for the due diligence to get to closing. So I was super pleased to see that, and all the federal grant funds came through as anticipated. So, no additional contribution from the county, and of course we got the additional funds, which was also a great appreciated contribution. So we are now moving. So the next steps, we're moving forward very shortly here. I need to talk to Jason about the Comprehensive Planning Board, but we're going to be moving forward. The Forest Service requires us to finalize a community forest plan within 120 days of closing. So we have a draft. We're going to have some public meetings on that piece of it. That's not the whole master plan. It just really addresses the area where the Forest Service is invested. So the southern 40 acres. But that's a requirement. So we'll be working through that process, and probably you'll see that for adoption from the board at the board level. Again, it'll probably not be too different from what our other plans have addressed with invasive species and native tree planting and things like that. And we do have that draft if anybody wants to see it now, but we're hoping to take that out and clean that up. That'll be the first step towards master planning. So then we're hoping to take the winter to also tighten up our master planning, which we do have a draft of that as well. And again, we have a lot of parameters on that master planning because there's 6 federal agencies and state and others involved. So there's a lot of parameters, but to the extent we want to definitely share that with the community as well. I know a lot of people are interested in timeline. That's obviously a resource dependent thing, but even today you can see we're making headway towards some of that work. But just so you know, the agricultural agreement is through the end of the year. So really there will be no access to the property definitely through the end of the year, because that's part of the terms of the agricultural easement or agreement, excuse me. That will terminate at the end of the year. We'll try and the farmer will certainly be able to get their crops off and things like that. I'm hoping actually, I thought it became meeting, but I'm hoping to actually possibly use the new tractor and interseeder to do our cover crop out there, which would be a huge help. We certainly can do it other ways, like we've done our prairie seeding, but might go a little faster with the interseeder and the bigger equipment. So I'm hoping we can work that out, timing and scheduling wise with land and water. So we'll do some immediate rescue when the crops come off in fall. We're hoping to get a cover crop down on the farmland. We'll work on planting them through the winter months, and then we'll start our process of trying to secure some grants for passive recreation development and restoration development. And we already have inquiries out there about that. I'm hoping, by next spring, we'll have some resources to start that work. We have, as I had mentioned earlier, we have some resources now. So through the winter, one other thing that we'll be doing is some ash removal strategic to where we are anticipating trail networks going in. So we'll be doing some ash tree removal because we have funding for that. And we will probably be, I don't know if we're going to probably not get to it in fall, but we have current funding to start working towards some tree planting restoration work. So that'll kind of come hopefully as soon as next spring. So some of that restoration work we're going to start right away. Clearly, there's some bigger ones, the wetland restoration that's going to take resources and also time. So obviously, we won't be doing tree planting where we anticipate doing wetland restoration, et cetera. That's part of the plan.
The land trust now, obviously that $2.3 million got us way over, right? So there's excess money. And in the paper, Tom Stoltz said something about you'd have to talk to the people that gave donations and stuff, but the thought that maybe they could use that money to.
Yeah, so I think part of it, the full terms and contract for the 2.3, it's definitely, somebody asked me yesterday if it's a real check, and yes, it's a real check. But the terms and the contracts of that are not finalized. So there's probably going to be some bounds on what that can be used for. Having said that, some of it will go towards the acquisition. There is also a certain amount that will be required from private donations to match our federal grants. So can't match it with ARPA. So there is still a significant portion of the private donations that need to go to match the federal grants as originally anticipated. Some will be ARPA. Yes, there will be some additional funds there from the ARPA grant. And I think that remains to be seen. I'm hoping, between restoration and, other things adjacent or with the property will be part of the mix.
Sounds like they still want a partnership with the county, right?
Yeah.
The land trust.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and we're talking daily about that. And again, the full terms of the 2.3 has not been, finalized. But yeah. So all good news still.
Keep duck stamp money and Wisconsin waterfowl in mind when it comes to the
Yeah, definitely. I'll talk. Yeah, that'd be great. We have significant wetlands that we're hoping to restore out there, significant acreage. So it definitely will be a phased project approach.
You hunting them when those groups get involved, or
not necessarily.
In this case, there probably will not be hunting because of the city ordinance.
Do some ducks. Wisconsin's a duck producing state, so duck stamp money and personal stamp on property they ranched on. So those are both.
Anybody have any questions as we move along here, please let me know, but you'll probably start seeing some of our planning efforts before you.
Okay, number 6, update on NOAA Lake Michigan Marine Sanctuary Advisory Council.
Yeah, so I wanted to bring this up. So as you know, we have a designated national marine sanctuary. Part of this is off the coast of Clay Bluff. I have been approached by Russ Green, who presented to us. He is now the director of this marine sanctuary. So a couple of months ago, we had Russ come in, and they're looking to fulfill an advisory council to guide the National Marine Sanctuary. So they are gonna have 15 solicited applicants for an advisory council. That'll be the voting part, and then they're also looking to have a representative from each of the counties and each of the municipalities sit on the advisory council as a non-voting member. At least that's how it sits right now. So I guess Russ has approached me about participation on the advisory council or somebody from the county. So it certainly would benefit us greatly. You heard about some of the data they're collecting. In fact, I just had a discussion with Russ about some of the offshore mapping that they've completed. That's super helpful with some of the work and information that we'd like to get for off of our park properties. So this isn't an action item, but if anybody has an interest in that role on the advisory council, certainly let me know, or certainly I could do it. I have an interest in seeing that through, and Russ approached us about definitely having a representative from Ozaki County. So, and I think it can be either or. So, and to that point, it's not. It does not preclude. I also want to put out there that the application process is open, so they are still looking for 15 at large. It doesn't preclude, more representatives certainly from Ozaki County and to apply to be a voting member on that board as well. So I can share the link and information with you. I didn't get it time to put it in the packet. I just got the call from Russ last week.
And that's exciting that's there now. I mean, that's cool.
It's great. And just a last word on that. In their other national marine sanctuaries, they've constructed a building and visitor center and things like that. They're looking at approaching this one a little bit differently because of all the communities involved. But they're looking at having like a presence in all the communities and kind of like satellites. So certainly the Wisconsin Maritime Museum in Manitowoc is going to be a big part of it. There's an existing building and an existing state investment. Manitowoc certainly has the historical aspect of the shipwrecks and stuff. But what they're looking at is trying to have each community, one thing that's been discussed and will be discussed at the advisory council is having each community kind of take a portion of the marine sanctuary and represent kind of that goal for NOAA. So one of the things that have been talked about for Ozaki County, and particularly in light of our new acquisition, was kind of being the ecological hub, if you will, of the marine sanctuary as it relates to NOAA's goals. Manitowoc, probably the historic shipwreck, Two Rivers, and Sheboygan were kind of being looked at as the recreational. So none of this is decided, but that's some of the discussion right now. And so I think there's a real benefit to us being engaged and involved.
Obviously.
Yes.
Okay, I should send the link.
I will.
All of us.
I will. I'll send that around the notice from NOAA.
All right, on to C, management, financial, informational reports. Planning and parks.
Yeah, so management quickly, actually right after this meeting, I'm going to be presenting at the Clean Rivers, Clean Lakes Conference on some of our stormwater projects. So the one at Mequon, the proposed one at Vermont, and then also our Little Menominee project and what we're doing there for water quality. So I'll be presenting at MATC this afternoon on that at the Clean Rivers, Clean Lakes. And then on October 4th, we're having a tour with our coastal resiliency group. We're expecting a pretty good turnout, a tour, and we're going to give them a tour at Vermont County Park on October 4th. I can get that information out to you too. You're welcome to join as well. We're going to talk about all of the work that's been happening there, the water study, groundwater, surface water, our hopes for some wetland restoration work there, the prairie restoration work we're doing, certainly the public access staircase, etc. So we're going to be able to showcase that statewide on October 4th. And Tuesday. Oh, maybe I got the wrong date. I'll get back to you. I might have the wrong date. Apologize. Oh, yeah, I think I'll get back to you on that then. And there was one more which I'm blanking on. So the only other thing I wanted to mention was financials. The golf course is net positive now. We've had a couple really good months, and same with the parks. We've been able to recover and significantly do well. One of the things we've instituted recently, we had a decline in disc golf revenue, and I had been concerned about that since the beginning of the year. So I had actually worked with staff to institute some things, to do some random checking and stuff. So we were finding out that we had a lot of significantly non-paying players. So we've taken some steps to improve that, and it's gotten better. But the other thing that we heard and we moved towards too was an online payment system. So there's a QR code out there that people can pay via PayPal or whatever online, and that's made a big difference. So that revenue is coming up, but definitely has been significantly lagging this year. But our camping revenue has been through the roof with our new sites and our online reservation system. So all said and done, both revenue at the parks and the golf courses is looking very positive. So
Discussed it, but is there a fine at these?
there is a fine. Yeah, there's a fine. So there's if you get caught without playing, it's a $25 fine, or you can buy a season pass on the spot. So the season pass is $55. So you can avoid a non-productive fine if you choose to just buy the season pass. That also guarantees us that they're good in the future. We won't have future issues with them. That's worked pretty well in the past, but it's always a challenging thing. People are. I didn't see it. I didn't know there's signage everywhere. So I would say now, with some things that we've instituted, I would say we're probably 70-80% compliance, which I think is pretty good kind of voluntary compliance. We certainly are striving for 100. I think we've put a lot into the conditions of the course, so I think that's still really high. We are seeing some people, play more at Fredonia's course, which is a smaller course, but some people are playing there because it is free, or other sites. But I think the play was there. I think we just weren't capturing all of that. So that's gotten better, and the rest of the parks and golf course revenue looks really good. Hopefully, we'll end positive.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah, doesn't fit in here anywhere. I had a constituent say that they were to Vermont and that the stairs is all the way down. Remember what we were looking at? Is that?
The stairs are not all the way down.
Somehow
And
they got down to the bottom of the beach.
And
I said, that surprised me. So I thought, I'm going to ask.
yeah, they're not open.
Okay.
They're fenced off with a chain link fence. It's 8 feet tall, so we don't have people trying to get down them. And they are not finished. We're still looking to finish that. We have.
They walked on the beach. They went down on the
They
beach.
may have. They may have. We do have that posted though. That was a concern by others, and it's effectively posted. We are trying to move forward on that one though, and hopefully soon we can get that contract done.
Okay, for disc golf, or go down the steps, it's one night in the Lions Den bathroom.
With no key.
That happens, right? I was just surprised. They said, oh, what? It's news to me. And I'm going like, oh, look at that.
There is a beach there. So
Well, they said they went all the way down. They were on the beach. It was very nice. Everything was wonderful. But the stairs aren't open.
no,
Somehow they get down on the beach.
not finished and it's not open.
So we're still waiting for bids on that, or?
Funding. basically, so that was a capital funding request.
We did
Um,
approve the.
And we're actively soliciting donations, which have been actually coming in pretty well lately. So, we're gonna talk to the contractor about maybe phasing that last phase, to get it underway. We're getting we had a good response from donations.
Where there's a will, there's a way, right? They just-
Yeah, we're very, very close. As I did report last time, we do have an approved stamped engineering design for that completion. So it's really just, trying to get the final pieces together.
Yeah, the next meeting is gonna be exactly, because there's a budget meeting, but it's possibly on that.
I think that was
So,
my mistake.
yeah, yeah, so bear that in mind, man. The next meeting, somebody's on there also.
It's true. We've been doing this all a while. That's why yesterday when, Paul said something, I'm going like, the new people don't realize how the schedule goes with the budget. That's why you gotta have that before. So it's on Tuesday instead of Thursday.
Everybody got that side? Be aware of that.
Before the board.
Yes, yes. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Tony, second.